Greetings, gentle viewers, and today I am actually bringing you a movie review, which is something I haven't done before, um, and it overlaps a little bit with some of the other things that we've done on the show. Today I want to talk about Predator. So, Predator, it's not like Predator really needs another review. It's a famous Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, but I want to very quickly just review it on two different levels. The first is just as a piece of popular entertainment. This is already one of the most beloved films, especially among men. I have not really, I'm not sure I've actually ever met a girl who's watched Predator. I'm sure that they exist, and I'm sure there's girls who like it too. I've just personally never met any of them. Of course, at this point, there's all kinds of Predator movies and crossover movies, and many of them star women. And I remember being a kid and reading that Predator book that the movie was based on, with the lady who ends up sort of joining the Predators. Anyway, but my point is, it is a deep and valued part of male culture, and it has been for a very long time. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. A lot of people would say this is the best Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It's got a fantastic cast, filmed in the jungle, and you can really tell because everyone's sweaty, everyone looks very uncomfortable. It sets up this wonderful claustrophobic situation. If for some insane reason you don't know what the movie Predator is about, it's in three very distinct phases. The first phase is about Arnold Schwarzenegger and his team, and they're basically a high-end rescue team who get dragged into this situation in Central America where they have to go to a rebel base to try and retake some prisoners. And then along the way, you find out there was actually an earlier team that has disappeared and all been horribly murdered. And they go in and they just completely demolish the rebel team, and it's lots of your fun classic Arnold Schwarzenegger action, and even has some of his little phrases that he does. You know, they're not quite as kitschy, but you know, they're the sort of things like knock knock kaboom. So you get your fun Arnold Schwarzenegger action, him and Jesse Ventura just being the biggest, toughest, manliest, sweatiest, most muscly guys in the room, blowing everybody to pieces. And so it's very exciting. And that is the first third of the movie. It kind of tricks you into thinking, oh, this is what the movie is. Then you get to the second half of the movie, which is like a horror movie, where they're on their way trying to get to the extraction point. They're just traveling through the jungle. Their enemies are defeated. They're bringing a prisoner back to be interrogated who would have lots of knowledge about the networks of this group. And there's something out there. There's something in the jungle. There's something watching them. And then they start being picked off. They start being killed one by one. And then eventually they realize there's something out there that's after them. And they use all of their equipment. They try to set up defensible positions. And it just completely fails. And it's not just that they're getting killed, it's that even the bodies of their slain companions are being stolen and taken away, and they don't know what's happening to them. And you're seeing these expert soldiers, these supermen, just gradually coming unhinged and becoming afraid and just be like, oh my gosh, we literally just mowed down a huge amount of the jungle with our guns. We didn't hit a single thing. We set up all of our mines and traps and everything, and it just, whatever it was, walked straight into our camp and walked right back out, and we never saw it. And so things just get worse and worse and worse. And this builds up this idea of this invisible enemy, and eventually they realize, for being the strongest, most dangerous humans on Earth, we're nothing. We're amusement to this invisible killer because it's hunting us for fun, for sport. And so eventually they're all killed except for Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then you go into the final third where he has survived, but he's lost everything. Everyone's dead. He's injured. His gear is proved worthless. He's lost it. He's been broken down to nothing, but he ends up surviving. and then he has to decide what he's going to do, and he decides to try again and to take on the predator. And he starts with a different approach. He builds himself all sorts of natural traps. He uses Boy Scout knowledge that he gets made fun of earlier in the movie for, and he eventually preys on the predator's own self-confidence. And in the end, he wins. The predator ends up respecting him as an enemy and decides to actually fight him hand to hand. There's a wonderful scene, which what I remember as a kid rewinding and rewinding, where the predator finally has him and holds him up and looks at him. And the predator is so big that he makes Arnold Schwarzenegger look tiny. And then he takes off his mask and reveals himself as this monster, and then just has fun smacking Arnold around, thinking, well, he's just going to, give him the honor of being slowly beaten to death. But in the end, Arnold manages to kill the predator and escape. So that final third of the movie, this sort of one-on-one stalking back and forth, dark in the night, survivalist movie. And then it all comes to an end, and you're just like, oh, what an experience. So it's a wonderful movie, great cast, amazing filming, nice, straightforward script, fantastic performances, likable characters, interesting. So if you haven't seen it just as a piece of pure entertainment, it is so much fun. It is just fantastic. It is well worth checking out. The Predator since then has become a little overdone. I've even seen with my kids on Teen Titans Go, where the Predator comes and hunts them on an island and in the end collects Robin's skull as a trophy, which is very funny, while the rest of them make friends with the Predator. So obviously the Predator's become this well-known cultural figure, but this movie's different. This is like the original. This is before the Predator was so much a property and a franchise, and it was more of an idea. And this is the great thing about it. It's not like he's ever given a species name. It's not like you ever really find out anything about him. Is very limited. He literally is just the predator. He is predator. He is predation. He is just the thing that hunts you. And so that's why I do want to take a few minutes to talk about something about the meaning of the predator, which is something I was reflecting on as I was watching it. I was just like, why is this so captivating to me? Why do I like this so much? And then I talked to my wife about it, and I said, yeah, here's what it is. And she's just like, well, that sounds horrible. And I was like, yeah, it actually does sound horrible. And so often with Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and action movies like this, there's accusations of this is just like a male power fantasy, which is a very shallow analysis for something that seems to speak deeply and meaningfully to so many men. And to people who say that, I'd say, well, you haven't really watched the movie or actually thought that much about the movie. And I would say that about other things like Superman. I also don't agree that Superman is a power fantasy, because if it was a power fantasy, he would not be Superman. Zod is a power fantasy. Superman is not a power fantasy. Superman is a morality fantasy, and I'll talk about that sometime when I have a chance to do it. I see Superman as more of a fantasy because it's the idea of a person where the distance between power and goodness has been reduced to zero. And that is the fantastic part of it. That's the bit we have to use our imaginations for, because it's impossible to find in real life. Where goodness and the ability to work on behalf of goodness are completely joined into one person perfectly. Now, to talk about Predator, I actually do want to take a minute. I'm going to just briefly read something from Making Nobody Happy to illustrate this point. This was something I wrote down while I was sort of reflecting on my thoughts about Predator and just how weird it is that men like it. So, watch the movie Predator and try to understand the male psyche. It's a fantasy about being hunted, about being stalked by an implacable foe before whom you are nothing. Your life is a trophy to be collected. It's about seeing the best and strongest of men reduced to chattering fear and being butchered like animals. It's about seeing supermen reduced to mere prey by an undefeatable animistic foe. It is a fantasy of the fears of our deepest, darkest memories of the primordial jungle, the jungle of life where death ruled and out of which only the ones who could survive emerged. Dutch, the hero, survives after losing everything. He loses all his help, his companions, his weapons, all the trappings and help of civilization. He runs. He's buried in deep waters. He has to jump off a cliff into the unknown. He crawls in the mud. He hides, and he expects to die. He looks death in the face. And he survives, in part by luck. But he learns. He learns the danger and the power of the jungle. He learns how to cloak himself in its darkness and danger. He becomes the predator. He masters fire and stands out, challenging the night. It's such a primal moment, too, when he lifts up the burning branch and just goes, oh! Such a primal moment. I love that part. But he's beaten to within an inch of his life, reduced to a child crawling on the ground and crying out. But he survives. Barely. What a strange and horrible fantasy, and how compelling. He slays the dragon of fear and death. And the predator is very dragon-like. He's clearly a giant, freaky lizard person. But even in death, the dragon laughs at Dutch. In the end, he stands amid the ruins of a burned and blighted land, a soldier who did his duty. His general looks on him in pity. The woman he protected sees him and sheds a tear. He is burned, bleeding, dirty, but alive. And as he leaves, the music lets us know the danger is gone for now, but not forever. It lives on in the heart of the jungle. Buried somewhere in there is the message. The greatness of men is not viciousness, nor mere predatory aggression. It's not even exactly strength or cleverness. It is courage, sacrifice, magnanimity, and perseverance. So, as I said, I really wanted to think, what kind of fantasy is this? As I said, it's a being hunted fantasy. It is a fantasy about a world that is out to get you. It is a primordial fantasy of saying, what if I am lost in the jungle of life? This primordial, totally untamed jungle. And just saying, is there something in you? Is there a challenge that starts destroying everything around you, a challenge that reduces you to nothing? And can you still survive? Can you not give up? Can you keep trying to come back? Can you try to make the jungle safe? And not even, as I said, not even safe forever, just safe for now. Can you defeat the predator of today that is hunting you and stalking you? Are you going to just lie down and give up and let it collect your life as a trophy? Or are you going to struggle back? And one of the great things about Predator is it does take Arnold Schwarzenegger and brings him down so much to nothing, both in that first defeat where everything he has tried has failed, and he is literally, as I said, just crawling in the mud, leaping, running for his life. That's not how you usually see Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it's the point where he just recognized, there's nothing I can do. Nothing I can do can stop this. And then that moment, there's so many things that are archetypal in this, so many things that happen that are archetypal. So if you're someone who's very interested in archetypes, I think that's part of why Predator works. It reaches down into this far back primordial history of archetypes that's within us and just grabs hold of them, and it pulls something out of us, and it pulls us out of it through, not through the idea of strength, but through this idea of danger and weakness and vulnerability. And it is this moment where he's covered in mud and he's braces himself almost like he's suspended himself into a torture device or a crucifixion in these roots of this tree. He's buried himself among the roots of this tree of life, and he's covered in mud and he can't be seen. And all of a sudden he realizes it can't see me. I've become part of the jungle. I've become part of the environment. After having been beaten down, he's become part of it, and he can't be seen. And that's where he builds himself up to the point where he's like, now I'll reveal myself. And of course, if you've seen it, you know his his thing he does in the end is where he's trying to convince it to come kill him, and that's how he ultimately kills it. It's a bit like Dune, where they say, you know, what would the human do? You know, it's like an animal is caught in a trap, it gnaws its own leg off to survive. And they say, what would a human do? Says the human will wait in the trap and stay in the trap and endure the pain until the predator, the hunter, comes, so that he can kill the hunter, thus securing the safety of his tribe. That's exactly what's happening in Predator. He decides to walk into the trap, to be the bait of the trap. He crawls himself to the position within his own trap and waits for the predator to come into the jaws of the trap. And then right when the predator thinks it has got him and has outwitted him, he shows, nope, I've got you. Anyway, so I did want to delve into that. There is something about Predator that speaks deeply to us. I'm not Mr. Manly Man. I don't hunt. I'm very soft-hearted. I really enjoy, you know, I didn't play much sports either. I was a small kid. I did not have great, I had lots of physical problems. I got beat up on by everybody. The boys beat up on me. The girls beat up on me. I was really small. I was really weak. I had lots of health problems. So I just got kicked around all the time. So it's not like I'm Mr. Drink a beer, smoke a cigarette, Dylan. You know, that's not me at all. But nevertheless, Predator speaks deeply to things that are deep inside me, and it helps me find those things that are within me. And in a way, it helps develop the heroic strength of those things, because it is inspiring, not inspiring in the way some things are of telling you how amazing you are, because part of the whole point of it is just to say how big and how strong and how talented everything that Arnold was. In the end, it wasn't enough. But his perseverance, his courage, his willingness to be hurt, his willingness to be harmed, his willingness to even sacrifice himself, to place himself as the bait within his own trap, that was what made him so strong. That was made him able to take out the predator. It was his humanity, and that willingness to give himself up. And I find that actually very inspiring. It is. I think actually there's a number of Arnold characters who are very inspiring. My dad has always been a big fan of the Terminator, of course, with his voluntary self-sacrifice at the end of the second movie. I really am a fan of the Predator, and it does have a somewhat tragic ending in a way, because you see what it costs. You see what terrible shape he's in, and how no one even says anything at the end. No one says anything to reassure him. They literally just look at him like, what happened to you? What happened? How could we have been laid so low? And what did it cost you to preserve this day for us, to end this threat? And so there's a heroic nature to that, and you kind of are like, we want to put a statue up about that person, but maybe it's a statue showing how much he was beaten down and yet unconquered. And then, as I said, at the very end, you don't get some happy resolution music. You don't get triumphal exit music. You get sad, quiet, wow, you made it through music. And then it goes straight back into the Predator theme of danger, because you've escaped the jungle, but the jungle is still there. You've beaten it back for now. The Predator is dead for today, but the jungle is forever. And anyway, great movie. Definitely watch it. Have a chance to, if you have time, take some time to think about, why was that so great? What about this calls to me? It's something that I haven't heard people talk about as much in detail, so I just wanted to take time to do that. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.